The golden hues of late afternoon sunlight filtered through the towering trees, casting long, dappled shadows across the quiet suburban park. Birds chirped in the distance, and a gentle breeze rustled the fallen leaves along the paved walkway. It was a kind of peaceful autumn day where everything felt still, except for a little girl, no older than 5, who skipped happily down the path, clutching a sandwich wrapped in a napkin. Her name was Aara, a name as unique as her spirit. She had golden curls that bounced with every step and eyes filled with innocent wonder. Dressed in a crimson dress that matched the autumn leaves, she had an air of quiet kindness about her. Aara's mother often brought her to this park after preschool, where she would sit on her favorite bench and nibble on snacks while watching the world go by. But today, something was different. As she walked along the quiet pathway, her small feet coming to a halt near a secluded part of the park, she noticed movement near the bushes, a flicker of fur, a rustling sound. Something or someone was there. Curiosity sparked in her wide eyes. Carefully, she took a step forward, then another. Her tiny fingers gripped the sandwich a little tighter, her heart thumping with excitement. As she approached, the rustling stopped, and then she saw it, a small, frail-looking creature crouched just beyond the bushes, half hidden in the undergrowth. It had large, striking amber eyes that stared at her with a mix of caution and desperation. Its fur was tawny brown, speckled with dark markings, and its tiny ears had black tufts at the tips. It was a bobcat kitten, but something was wrong. The little bobcat was too thin, its ribs faintly visible beneath its matted fur. It looked exhausted, its breathing shallow as if it hadn't eaten in days. Its whiskers twitched, and its eyes flickered from Aara's face to the sandwich in her hands. Aara, still as a statue, took in the sight before her. She had never seen a wild animal up close before, let alone one so young and helpless. But instead of fear, she felt something else. Pity, compassion, a silent understanding between two souls, one human, one wild. Without hesitation, Aara knelt down and unwrapped her sandwich, revealing soft bread with peanut butter and honey. The bobcat's nose twitched at the scent, its body tensing as if ready to run. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice barely louder than the wind. Slowly, she tore off a small piece of the sandwich and placed it gently on the ground a few feet away. Then she sat back, watching patiently. For a long moment, nothing happened. The bobcat's ears flicked, its gaze darting between the food and the girl. The world around them seemed to hold its breath. And then, cautiously, hesitantly, the bobcat inched forward, its delicate paws pressed into the earth as it crept closer, step by step, until it reached a small offering. It sniffed the bread, unsure at first, before finally lowering its head and taking a tiny bite. Aara's heart swelled with joy. A gentle smile spread across her lips as she watched the bobcat eat. For the next few minutes, she tore off more pieces, placing them closer and closer, until the bobcat was mere inches from her tiny outstretched hand. For a fleeting moment, it looked up, its wild amber eyes locking with hers. A silent connection passed between them. It was trust. The bobcat finished the last of the sandwich and, without a sound, turned and padded back toward the safety of the trees. But before disappearing completely, it stopped and looked back, just for a second, before vanishing into the foliage. Aara sat there, her heart fluttering with a sense of wonder she couldn't quite explain. She had just made a friend, a wild, beautiful friend, and she had no idea what was coming next, because the very next day, something completely unexpected would happen. The next morning, golden sunlight streamed through the window of Aara's bedroom, gently nudging her awake. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and stretched, but something felt different. A memory tugged at the edges of her mind. Then it hit her, the little bobcat. She sat up quickly, her heart thumping with excitement. Had it been real, or just a dream? She tried to recall every detail. The golden brown fur, the wary but curious amber eyes, the way it had eaten from her hand before running off into the forest. It had felt so real. Aara scrambled out of bed, still wearing her red nightgown, and rushed to her window, pressing her small hands against the cool glass. The trees in her backyard swayed gently in the breeze, but there was no sign of the wild kitten she had met the day before. Her mind buzzed with questions. Was the bobcat safe? Did it have a family? Was it still hungry? Would she ever see it again? Downstairs, the familiar aroma of pancakes filled the air. Her stomach growled, but she couldn't focus on food, not when her heart was racing with anticipation. Still, she knew she had to act normal. If she told her mother she was running to the park just to check on a wild bobcat, she might not be allowed to go. Aara hurried into the kitchen, where her mother stood by the stove, flipping golden brown pancakes onto a plate. "Morning, sweetheart," her mother said, smiling as she set a plate in front of Aara. "Morning," Aara replied absent-mindedly, already planning her next move. She took a few quick bites of her pancake, but barely tasted it. Her thoughts were elsewhere. "Mom, can I go to the park after breakfast?" she asked eagerly, trying to sound casual. Her mother chuckled. "Already? Didn't we just go yesterday?" Aara bit her lip. I liked it there. And I want to take my sketchbook." It wasn't a complete lie. She did enjoy drawing. Her mother studied her for a moment, then sighed playfully. "Fine, but stay where I can find you." Aara nodded, quickly finishing her breakfast. As soon as her mother turned away, she grabbed an extra sandwich from the counter and stuffed it into her small backpack. She didn't know if the bobcat would still be there, but if it was, it might be hungry. A familiar face. Aara practically ran to the park, her small feet thudding against the pavement. Her heart pounded with excitement. Would the bobcat still be there? She reached the spot where she had last seen it, near the bushy undergrowth, and crouched down. The world around her was still and quiet. She waited and waited. Minutes passed, and disappointment began to settle in her chest. Maybe the bobcat had left. Maybe it had only been passing through, a fleeting moment she would never experience again. Just as she was about to give up, a rustling sound reached her ears. Aara's breath caught. Slowly out of the shadows, the small bobcat emerged. Its fur looked a little cleaner, its eyes just as bright as before. But what surprised her most was the way it walked toward her without hesitation. Aara's face broke into a smile. "You came back," she whispered. She carefully reached into her backpack and pulled out the sandwich, breaking off a small piece and setting it on the ground. This time, the bobcat didn't hesitate. It stepped closer, sniffing the food before taking it straight from her hand. Aara gasped softly. She could feel its soft whiskers brush against her fingers, the warmth of its breath. A shiver of excitement ran down her spine. The bobcat finished a bite and looked up at her expectantly. A giggle bubbled up from her chest. "You like it, don't you?" She tore off another piece, feeding it again. For the next several minutes, she sat there, feeding her wild friend, feeling an invisible bond strengthening between them. The bobcat no longer looked at her with caution. Instead, there was something else in its gaze. Recognition, trust, friendship, the strange feeling. As the bobcat finished the last bite, it suddenly froze. Its ears twitched. Its amber eyes flickered toward the trees. Aara frowned. "What is it?" The bobcat's body tensed, and before she could react, it darted into the bushes, disappearing as fast as it had come. A second later, snap! A branch cracked somewhere behind her. Aara's heart jumped. She whirled around, but there was nothing there, just the trees, swaying gently in the wind. But something didn't feel right. A cold shiver ran down her spine. It felt like someone was watching her. She swallowed hard, hugging her arms to herself. Maybe she was just imagining things. Maybe it was just a deer or a bird rustling the branches. Still, her skin prickled with unease. Taking a deep breath, she turned back to where the bobcat had been. But it was gone. Aara sighed, disappointment washing over her. She had finally gained the bobcat's trust, and now it had vanished again. But as she stood to leave, she noticed something unusual, right where the bobcat had been sitting. Something lay half buried in the dirt. Frowning, she reached out and picked it up. It was the feather, but not just any feather. It was dark and long, tipped with red. Her small fingers ran over its surface, a strange feeling prickling in her chest. Where had it come from? And why did it make her feel uneasy? As she turned it over in her hands, a gust of wind blew through the trees, carrying a distant sound, almost like a whisper. Aara shuddered. Something was coming, and soon she would discover just how much her small act of kindness had changed everything. The wind carried a strange silence as Aara stood there, gripping the feather tightly in her small hand. Something about it unsettled her. It wasn't just its unusual color, but the way it had appeared out of nowhere, right where the bobcat had been. Her fingers ran over its sleek surface, and for a moment she felt something odd, almost like a faint warmth. It was probably just her imagination. Still, an uneasy feeling stirred inside her, whispering that this was no ordinary feather. Glancing around, she noticed how the trees swayed in slow, rhythmic motions. The rustling leaves formed patterns in the air, and for the first time, she felt like the forest was watching her just as much as she was watching it. She swallowed hard, her gaze shifting back to the bushes where the bobcat had disappeared. Would it come back? Did it know something she didn't? A voice broke through her thoughts. Aara? She jumped, heart pounding, before realizing it was just her mother, standing a few feet away on the path. Relief washed over her, though the uneasiness still lingered. Her mother smiled, unaware of the thoughts racing through Alara's mind. I thought I'd find you here, ready to go home. Aara hesitated, glancing once more at the undergrowth. There was no sign of the bobcat. With a reluctant nod, she tucked the feather into her pocket and followed her mother back toward the house. But even as they walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. That night, as she lay in bed, the feather sat on her nightstand, catching the soft glow of her bedside lamp. She had spent the evening tracing its edges, trying to understand why it felt so strange. But the more she stared at it, the more questions filled her mind. A bobcat and a mysterious feather in the same spot. What did it mean? She sighed, rolling onto her side. Maybe she was overthinking it. Maybe she just needed sleep. The house was quiet. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, a soothing sound that had always lulled her to sleep. But just as she began to drift off, a different sound reached her ears. A faint tapping. Her eyes fluttered open. Tap, tap. It was coming from the window. Her breath caught in her throat. Slowly, she sat up, the covers sliding off her. The tapping continued, light but persistent. She hesitated before swinging her legs over the side of the bed and creeping toward the window. The cool night air pressed against the glass, distorting the world outside. Then she saw it, two golden eyes staring right at her. She gasped but quickly covered her mouth. Her heart pounded. It was the bobcat. It sat just outside on the windowsill, its fur illuminated by the pale moonlight. But something about its expression sent a shiver down her spine. It wasn't just looking at her. It was watching her, as if it needed her to understand something important. Aara hesitated only for a moment before unlocking the window. It creaked softly as she pushed it open. A rush of cool air filled the room, carrying the scent of the trees. The bobcat didn't move. It simply gazed at her with those deep, knowing eyes. "What is it?" she whispered. The bobcat tilted its head slightly, then, to her surprise, stepped inside. Aara barely had time to react before it padded toward her bed, moving as if it had always belonged there. It turned in slow circles before settling down, its tail curling around its body. She stared in astonishment. This was wild behavior. Bobcats didn't just wander into houses and make themselves comfortable. Something was different about this one. Slowly, she walked over and sat beside it. The bobcat didn't flinch, didn't retreat. It only looked at her with that same deep gaze. And then, something even stranger happened. The feather on her nightstand quivered. Aara froze. She hadn't touched it. The room was still. There was no wind inside. But the feather trembled as if responding to something unseen. She swallowed, reaching for it. The moment her fingers brushed against it, a wave of warmth pulsed through her palm. A feeling, not a thought, not words, but an emotion, flowed through her like a message she couldn't quite understand. The bobcat blinked slowly. Aara looked between the feather and the animal, a realization creeping into her mind. They were connected. She didn't know how, but she was sure of it. The bobcat's ear flicked, and for the first time it made a soft, almost musical sound, somewhere between a purr and a whisper. Aara barely breathed. This was no ordinary animal. But before she could think of what to do next, the bobcat suddenly stood up, its body tense, alert. Then Aara heard it too, a distant sound, far off in the forest. A low, haunting cry that sent chills racing down her spine. The bobcat turned toward the window, ears pricked. Aara's heart pounded. Whatever that sound was, it didn't belong to the night. The bobcat looked at her once more, eyes urgent, then leapt onto the windowsill. Aara knew what it wanted. It wanted her to follow. For a long moment, she hesitated. It was the middle of the night. She should be in bed. She should be safe. But something deep inside her whispered that this moment was important. Something was happening. Something she needed to see. She reached out and ran her fingers through the bobcat's fur. It was soft yet wild, carrying the scent of the forest. It felt real, more real than anything she had ever touched. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed the feather and shoved it into her pocket. Then she climbed onto the windowsill and followed the bobcat into the night. The cold air hit her immediately. She landed softly on the ground, her feet barely making a sound against the earth. The bobcat was already moving, slipping through the trees like a shadow. Aara hesitated for only a second before stepping forward. The feather in her pocket felt warm again, almost pulsing against her fingertips. The forest had never felt so alive. The trees whispered overhead, their branches swaying in unseen rhythms. The night air carried an energy that made her skin tingle. She glanced back at the house. The warm glow of her bedroom light was still visible through the window, a reminder of the safety she was leaving behind. But she turned away. She wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Something had awakened inside her, something calling her forward. She stepped into the trees, following the golden-eyed bobcat into the unknown. Aara moved through the forest with cautious steps, her breath barely audible in the cool night air. The bobcat padded ahead, silent and swift, guiding her deeper into the trees. Moonlight spilled through the branches, casting shifting shadows on the forest floor. The deeper they went, the more she felt it, the strange energy lingering in the air, pressing against her skin. It was as if the entire forest was alive, watching, waiting. The feather in her pocket pulsed again. She pressed a hand against it, feeling the warmth seep into her palm. It wasn't just a feather. She was sure of it now. Ahead, the bobcat suddenly stopped. Aara froze. Her heart pounded. The forest was too quiet. No rustling leaves. No chirping insects. Just silence, thick and heavy. The bobcat's ears twitched, its body tensed. Then, without warning, it let out a soft, low growl. Aara's breath caught. She scanned the trees, searching for what had caused a reaction. Then she saw it, a shape barely visible in the darkness. It was standing at the edge of the clearing, just beyond the reach of the moonlight. Aara squinted, trying to make out its form. It was tall, much taller than any animal she had ever seen, and its eyes, glowing, a deep, eerie blue, shimmering like ice under a winter sky. She took a step back, her pulse racing. The bobcat moved in front of her, its fur bristling, as if shielding her from whatever stood in the shadows. Aara swallowed hard. "What is that?" she whispered. The figure didn't move. But the moment she spoke, the feather in her pocket grew even warmer, almost burning. A wave of dizziness washed over her. Images flickered in her mind, too fast to understand. A blur of white, the sound of wind howling, the feeling of something ancient, something powerful. She stumbled, gripping the nearest tree for support. The bobcat turned its head slightly, its golden eyes filled with something she couldn't quite read. Was it warning her? Encouraging her? The figure in the darkness took a step forward. Aara's breath hitched. The moonlight touched it now, revealing more of its form. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. Its body shimmered, half solid, half translucent, like mist shaped into something alive. It was covered in what looked like feathers, but they moved, shifting like waves in a restless sea. And then it spoke, not in words, not in sound, but in feeling. A voice echoed inside her mind, ancient and knowing. You are the one who sees. Aara's knees nearly gave out. The bobcat remained perfectly still, its gaze locked onto the creature. What? Aara's thoughts stumbled over themselves. What do you mean? Who are you? The presence in her mind pulsed again, sending another wave of emotions through her. This time, she understood more. Not words, but meaning. The forest, the animals, the balance of things unseen. And the feather. Aara's hand shot into her pocket. She pulled it out, holding it up in the moonlight. The moment she did, the creature reacted. A rush of wind spiraled through the clearing, lifting the feather from her palm. It hovered between them, glowing faintly, as if awakening. The creature's eyes burned brighter. The feather pulsed once, twice. Then, without warning, it dissolved into tiny specks of light. Aara gasped. The light swirled, dancing through the air before settling onto the bobcat's fur. The animal didn't flinch, didn't move. It simply closed its eyes as the glow sank into its body. Then, something incredible happened. The bobcat changed. Not physically, not in size or shape, but in presence. Aara felt it before she saw it. A shift, an unexplainable transformation. The energy around it intensified. The golden sheen of its eyes deepened. And then it spoke, not in words, not aloud, but just like the creature before her, directly into her mind. You were meant to find me. Aara's heart nearly stopped. Her breath came in short gasps as she stumbled back. No, this isn't real. This can't be real. The bobcat rose to its feet, standing taller than before, its tail flicking through the air with new purpose. It took a slow step forward, its golden gaze never leaving hers. You felt it, didn't you? From the moment we met, you knew I was different. Aara's hands trembled. The world tilted slightly, her mind struggling to grasp what was happening. But you're just an animal, she whispered. The bobcat blinked. Am I? A sharp silence fell between them. Aara didn't know what to say, what to think. Nothing made sense anymore. The creature in the darkness watched, its glowing blue eyes reflecting something close to patience. It hadn't moved, hadn't spoken again, but Aara could feel it. It was waiting. The bobcat turned its head slightly, glancing at the creature, then back at her. You were chosen, Aara. Her name, spoken so effortlessly in her mind, sent shivers down her spine. Chosen? For what? The night pressing around them, the weight of the unknown settling deep in her chest. She wanted answers. She wanted to understand. And yet, deep down, she already knew this was only the beginning. Taking a shaky breath, she looked at the bobcat. Then tell me, she whispered. Tell me everything. The golden eyes softened. Come, Aara, there is much to show you. And with that, the bobcat turned, stepping into the darkness once more. Aara hesitated for only a moment. Then, gripping the last remnants of fear inside her, she followed. The night welcomed them, whispering secrets only the chosen could hear. And for the first time in her life, Aara understood that she was no longer just a girl. She was part of something far greater than she had ever imagined. Aara followed the bobcat deeper into the forest, her heart pounding with anticipation. The trees loomed high above, their branches swaying as if whispering secrets to one another. The night air carried a strange energy, a sensation she had never felt before. Every step forward felt like stepping into something ancient, something beyond her understanding. The bobcat moved gracefully, its golden eyes glowing in the moonlight. It no longer seemed like just an animal. There was wisdom in its gaze, something beyond instinct, beyond nature itself. Aara couldn't shake the words it had spoken in her mind. You were chosen. Chosen for what? Her fingers brushed the empty space in her pocket where the feather had once been. She could still feel its warmth lingering against her skin, as if it had left something behind, something unseen yet powerful. She hesitated for a moment, glancing back. The house, the world she had always known, was far behind her now. A part of her wondered if she would ever see it again. The bobcat stopped. Aara halted just behind it, her breath catching as she took in the sight before her. A clearing, but it was unlike any clearing she had ever seen. The grass shimmered under moonlight, giving off a faint silver glow. In the center, an ancient stone lay half buried in the earth, covered in intricate carvings that seemed to shift when she looked at them. A strange, ethereal mist curled around edges, hovering just above the ground, and at the far end of the clearing stood the creature. The same being from before, its feathered form pulsing with an otherworldly light, its glowing blue eyes fixed on her, unblinking, unreadable. Aara felt her body tense. She knew she should be afraid, but something inside her, something deep, instinctual, told her she was meant to be here. The bobcat stepped forward and turned to face her. It's time you understood. Its voice echoed in her mind. Aara swallowed hard. Understood what? The bobcat didn't answer immediately. Instead, it padded toward the ancient stone and sat beside it, curling its tail around its paws. The glowing creature remained where it was, silent, watching. Aara stepped forward cautiously. As soon as her foot touched the grass, a wave of warmth spread through her. She gasped, looking down. The earth beneath her feet pulsed faintly, as if responding to her presence. She reached out and ran her fingers along the stone's carvings. The moment she did, a spark of energy shot up her arm. Images flooded her mind, flashes of creatures she had never seen before, of people dressed in robes, of stars aligning in the sky. She pulled her hand back, panting. What was that? The bobcat's voice came again. The truth. Aara's pulse quickened. What truth? The bobcat lifted its head, its golden eyes glowing even brighter. This world is not what you think. She frowned. What do you mean? The creature behind them shifted slightly, its feathers ruffling. The wind picked up, swirling the mist around them. There is a balance, the bobcat continued, a delicate thread that holds nature, time, and existence together. Few are able to see it. Even fewer are chosen to protect it. Aara's breath hitched. Protect it? From what? The bobcat didn't answer immediately. It looked toward the feathered being, as if seeking permission to continue. Finally, it turned back to her. There are forces that wish to break this balance. Forces that should not exist. Aara's stomach twisted. And now, they know you are here. A chill ran down her spine. What do you mean? The bobcat's ears flicked, sensing something in the air. The creature behind them let out a low, echoing the sound vibrating through Aara's chest. Then the forest around them shifted. Aara barely had time to react before the trees bent unnaturally, their trunks twisting like living things. Shadows slithered between the branches, dark shapes with glowing red eyes peering through the mist. The air turned thick, heavy, suffocating. Aara's instinct screamed at her to run, but she couldn't, because standing in the darkness, just beyond the clearing, were figures. Tall, hooded, unmoving, watching. Their eyes, if they had any, burned like embers in the night. The bobcat rose to its feet, for bristling. They have come. Aara's throat went dry. Who are they? The feather being finally moved, stepping forward. The light around it pulsed, pushing back the mist and shadows. The hooded figures did not step closer, but they did not retreat either. The Bobcat's voice was firm. The ones who seek to break the balance. They have been waiting, watching, and now they see you. Aara, clench your fists. What do they want from me? The wind howled through the trees, shaking the leaves loose. The figures remained still, but their presence pressed against her like a weight. Then one of them stepped forward. Aara tensed. The figure raised a hand. Long, pale fingers curled in the air, and suddenly, pain. A sharp, searing pain shot through Alara's skull. She staggered back, clutching her head as the world spun around her. Visions flooded her mind. Flashes of destruction, of forests burning, of animals crying out in fear. The balance. It was breaking. Aara let out a choked gasp, falling to her knees. The Bobcat rushed to her side, its voice urgent. Stay with me. Do not let them in. The feathered being raised its wings, sending out a pulse of blinding blue light. The hooded figures hissed, recoiling as the energy pushed them back. The pain in Alara's head eased, but her body felt weak, drained. She struggled to stand, her vision blurry. The Bobcat nudged her, steadying her. We have to leave. Now. Aara forced herself to her feet, swallowing her fear. But no time. Move. The feathered being stepped forward again, its glow intensifying. The hooded figures retreated further, their ember-like eyes flickering with something close to frustration. Aara didn't wait for an invitation. She turned and ran, the Bobcat at her side. The forest around them blurred as they moved, the air thick with energy. She didn't know where they were going, only that they had to get away. Branches whipped past her, the cold air biting at her skin. Her heart pounded, her breath came in sharp gasps. But even as they fled, she knew this wasn't over. It was only the beginning. And whatever was coming next, she wasn't sure if she was ready. Alara's legs burned as she ran, the wind howling through the trees. The Bobcat stayed close beside her, its golden eyes locked ahead, ears flicking back every few seconds to check for pursuit. The forest seemed endless, its shadows stretching and twisting as if trying to swallow them whole. The hooded figures had vanished into the darkness, but their presence still clung to the air like the fading echoes of a nightmare. Alara's breath came in ragged gasps. Where are we going? Somewhere safe, the Bobcat replied. Somewhere they can't follow. The trees thinned, revealing a narrow path lined with stones that pulsed faintly beneath the moonlight. Aara slowed, her heart hammering. What is this place? The Bobcat stopped at the path's edge and looked up at her. The last sanctuary. A deep, resonant hum filled the air. Aara turned, her breath catching. The feathered being stood behind them, its glow pulsing steadily. Its piercing blue eyes locked onto hers, and this time its voice, deep, melodic, ancient, filled her mind. The choice is yours, Aara. She shivered at the weight of its words. Choice. The Bobcat's tail flicked. You are not here by accident. Aara swallowed hard. But I didn't ask for this. The feathered being stepped closer. No one ever does. And yet you are here. Alara's hands trembled. I don't even understand what's happening. What do you want from me? A pause. Then, to protect the balance. The weight of those words settled over her. The vision she had seen, of forests burning, of creatures crying out in agony, flashed in her mind. She felt the pain again, the sense of something ancient breaking apart. She looked at the Bobcat. You knew this all along, didn't you? It nodded solemnly. I was sent to guide you, to see if you were ready. Aara let out a shaky breath. And if I say no? The feathered being's glow dimmed slightly. Then the balance will continue to break. And when it shatters completely, this world will not survive. Alara's chest tightened. She turned her gaze back to the forest, to the place she had come from, the place she had always known. For the first time, it didn't feel like home. She had spent her whole life believing the world was simple, that animals were just animals, that the sky and the earth were just things that existed. But now she knew better. She clenched her fists. If I do this, what happens to me? The bobcat's golden eyes softened. You become what you were meant to be. Ilara's pulse quickened. And what's that? The feather being spread its wings, its glow intensifying. A guardian. A wave of energy surged through the air, and suddenly, the carvings on the stones around them began to glow, blue, gold, silver, intertwining like threads of fate. The very ground seemed to hum beneath her feet. Aara hesitated. 1,000 thoughts raced through her mind. But then she remembered. The bobcat's hunger the first time she met it. The warmth of the feather, the voices in the wind, the figures in the darkness. She had already stepped into this world. There was no going back. She took a deep breath. Tell me what to do. The feather being's eyes brightened, and the bobcat gave a slow, approving nod. Then the world around her shifted. The trees blurred, the air shimmered, and in an instant, Aara was no longer just a girl. She was something more, something new, something the world had been waiting for. A strange warmth spread through her chest, flowing down to her fingertips. She looked at her hands, expecting to see the familiar skin she had known all her life. But something had changed. Faint, intricate patterns had appeared, delicate lines that shimmered with the same glow as the sanctuary stones. They pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, a connection forming between her and the ancient energy of the land. She gasped, overwhelmed by the sensation of power flowing through her veins. The bobcat watched her closely. You feel it, don't you? The bond. Aara nodded, though she couldn't quite put the feeling into words. It was as if she had suddenly become part of something much larger than herself, as if she could feel the breath of the wind, the whispers of the trees, the heartbeat of the earth. The feather being extended a wing. Take the final step, Aara. Embrace it fully. Aara hesitated for only a moment before reaching out, her fingers brushing against the glowing feathers. A sudden rush of energy surged through her, and for a fleeting moment, she saw everything. The entire world laid bare before her, its delicate balance hanging by a thread. She saw the scars left by those who sought to destroy it, the creatures crying out for help, the shadows creeping ever closer. And she saw herself, standing at the center of it all, not as a helpless girl, but as a protector, a guardian. When the vision faded, Aara stood taller, stronger. The bobcat purred, stepping beside her. It is done. She turned, looking back toward the darkened forest where the hooded figures had disappeared. They were still out there, still watching, still waiting. But she wasn't afraid anymore. She was ready. The feather being gave a slow nod. Go, guardian. Your path begins now. Aara inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of the moment settle over her. She reached down, running her fingers through the bobcat's fur, grounding herself in its warmth. Then, with one last look at the sanctuary, she stepped forward and disappeared into the night. In the distance, where the hooded figures had once stood, a new presence stirred, watching, waiting, because this was only the beginning.